Good evening. Welcome to The Next Word. I'm your host, Chris Warnke. They say that a good leader knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. And tonight we have Luis Borunda, who is the Deputy Secretary of State for the state of Maryland, who has been an incredible leader. And we're going to talk about what he's been doing here in the state. Luis, and I can
Chris,
tell
thank you.
No, but I know, I just knew that about you. The moment I met you, I said, this is a true leader. And if you look at your resume, I can see what you've done, so I don't think anybody would dispute that fact. Just from what I know of what you've done so far, you've been a real asset to the state.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here.
Sure.
And I don't know even where to start, but I think you were born with those leadership genes in you.
Well, my dad certainly was a leader, sure.
Yeah, tell me about your dad.
Well, he was a Baptist pastor, and
really,
the Baptists sent him all over the country to pastor little hamlets where Hispanics were. This is back in the late 50s and early 60s. He ended up becoming the first person in his family to graduate from college, and also went on to get a doctorate.
Really? Your father?
Yeah, so he was involved in education and always would take me to board meetings and so on and so forth. So I garnered a lot of that, I think, from him.
Wow. Now, he was a Baptist, Hispanic American.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, well, the stereotype is that Hispanics are Catholic.
Or Catholic, right.
But there's a significant Protestant population. In fact, evangelicals are the largest and fastest growing religious
among the Hispanic American community? Oh, I didn't realize that.
In Latin America, sure.
So he took you in all his board meetings? And, were you the child of, how many children were in your family?
I'm the oldest of 5.
Okay, because I was going to say you have 6, right?
Yeah, I do have 6.
And they range from like 4 to 25.
Yeah, 4 to 26.
26,
yeah,
oh my
yeah,
God. So you're the oldest of 5. Okay, so he took you, he groomed you early on, and that's I think it's important. I mean, I think going and seeing and being there, shapes the mind, impacts.
It does.
What you want to do later.
It does. I think setting the example.
Yes.
Parents setting an example for their children, I think, is extremely important. And I've followed that principle as I've started different organizations specifically geared toward helping Hispanic kids understand that college should be their next step after graduating from high school.
Right. Oh,
and so I started an organization called U.S. Hispanic Youth Entrepreneur Education.
Yeah, I saw that. Yes, that's terrific.
Back in 2006, I think. And we realized that Hispanic high school kids were dropping out at the same rate as the African American counterpart. So we began to focus on that and helping kids understand that finishing high school was critical to their career path. And then we helped parents understand that they needed to be a part of that process.
Absolutely.
That it wasn't just up to this educational program that we started, or their classroom or their teachers, that parents had to be engaged as well.
Oh, absolutely. Is it a national organization? It's a national.
Well, I'll tell you, we developed a national footprint, and but that was taking our programs along with the Hispanic College Fund as they had programs nationally. So we were kind of a part of a national program, but most of our efforts were focused right here in Maryland.
Yeah, right. I was going to say in Baltimore. I mean, of course, you live in Annapolis, or are you?
No. I work in Annapolis, but I live in Baltimore County.
You do? Okay, Baltimore County.
Yeah. And in fact, I served on the Baltimore County School Board. I was the first Hispanic to ever serve on that school board. Yeah.
And then you were founding president of the Baltimore Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Correct. Yeah. I saw a need for Hispanic businesses to begin to organize themselves as the population grew, and of course, Montgomery County has been a longtime leader in the state in terms of Hispanic business and organization, and we took our cues from the
Here?
Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in Montgomery County.
Wow.
And their leadership here,
Yeah.
and we modeled our chamber after Montgomery County's local chamber, as well as a Maryland Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So,
Oh, that's terrific.
yeah. I think that Montgomery County has really been a leader in that whole organizational aspect for Hispanic or Latino-owned businesses.
For the state as well as nationally, probably. I mean,
Yeah, well, of course, the Southwest has always, is home to the traditional home anyway to Hispanics, and I think Hispanics are relative newcomers to, in many regards, to the state of Maryland. I remember when I first moved here. In 1984, and when I say here, I'm talking to about Maryland, specifically Baltimore. People would ask me on a regular basis if I was Italian or Greek.
Right.
Right? Because there wasn't a context.
An Esther and I to them. Right. You could go for that's right. That's great. Oh, I said that's right. And Baltimore has, of course, which I love about Baltimore. It's so diverse. It has such a great, diverse population, ethnic.
Yeah, it does. It's a city of neighborhoods, and
culture,
of course, Fells Point was the second largest port of entry for immigrants to the United States.
Well, that doesn't get the attention, Louise.
No, it doesn't.
At all.
No. Ellis Island was the first, and Fells Point was the second.
That's right, Fells Point. That's right. That's right, because when I did my doctoral dissertation, I know I went back through all the ship records, and I remember Fells Point was them, but it doesn't get any attention. Just odd. I mean,
no, it doesn't, and it's interesting because as immigrants would come through Fells Point, whether they were Greek immigrants or Ukrainian or Italian, and they all set up their neighborhoods in that general area, and it's a fascinating place.
I love Baltimore.
So Hispanics, although they didn't come through the port, obviously, have kind of settled in that area, in that Fells Point area now as well. Yeah. The interesting point, though, is that while other immigrant groups took about 3 generations to move out of that vicinity, Hispanics are moving out of that area in just half a generation.
Oh, that's
so economically, which is the primary driver why people would move into the county or surrounding local jurisdictions, as well as education, obviously. But they have come into that Fells Point area, grown and prospered economically, and really wanted to diversify their children's educational opportunities.
Oh, that's true. So within the state, though, Louise, what are the big pockets of the Hispanic American? I know, obviously, Montgomery County, Baltimore County.
Well, Montgomery County is first, followed by Prince George's County.
Oh, right. Of course.
Anne Arundel County is really grown, and typically they're about third, followed by Baltimore County and Baltimore City, and they fluctuate between third and fifth, or fourth and fifth place. I might have Anne Arundel County and Baltimore County reversed, but in any event, those are the top areas.
Are the top 4.
Howard County is also becoming a really strong magnet for the Hispanic community. And of course, on the Eastern Shore, there's a huge immigrant population that work out in the fields and in the poultry industry.
Because of the whole poultry, so you did the Baltimore Chamber, and then I know you've had a number of stepping stone.
Yeah. Well, I'm a business owner. I'm.
How come I missed that part?
Well, it's currently my full time. I've devoted my full attention to
deputy,
to the state government, and but I have a graphics business that I've had for about 24 years now, but. I really used that business kind of as a springboard, and almost inadvertently, because when we started the Baltimore Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, we began to bring in, the different politicians to speak to the organization. It was new. It was first to market.
Right. First
and
to market.
so politicians were really interested in coming to meet with the organization. And a young congressman by the name of Bob Ehrlich came to speak at one of our events, and he hadn't indicated that he was going to run for governor yet, but that was the buzz. So I asked him if we could help organize Hispanics.
Oh, the committee. And so you helped actually create the first committee.
I created the Hispanic committee to help Bob Ehrlich.
Right.
And he went on, of course, to run for governor and win.
Right.
And he began to appoint me to different commissions, boards and commissions, all pro bono, of course.
Of course.
And that kind of whetted my appetite for being engaged in government service and public service. Right. And of course, I met Governor Hogan during that time. He was Governor Ehrlich's appointment secretary.
Oh, he was. Okay, I didn't know what he was.
And I met folks that currently are in the administration and people that have left since Governor Hogan has been there for nearly 2 years. Sometimes there's a changeover, but in any event, they gave me a call and asked me to serve, and of course it took me about all of 5 seconds to say, yeah, absolutely, they'd love to come back.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
So you've been in the current, your current post since the governor's election.
Correct. Yeah.
Which,
January 15th was, we celebrated our second year.
Right.
In Annapolis.
That's when you've done an amazing job for those 2 years already.
Well, the governor has a really high approval rating. And I think people want to be a part of that.
Yes,
Everybody wants to be a part of a winning team.
It just comes off.
And so we've been able to accomplish a lot, specifically in terms of our international relationships.
Right.
And a lot of people don't understand this or know this, but the Office of the Secretary of State is responsible for Maryland's international relationships.
And I know I looked at your bio online, and you said, I think you made a point when said, "Look, we are open for business."
Yeah,
and it's great. I mean, you've all put a huge footprint in the state from the from bringing in international business, which.
Well, I think the Augustine Commission said that Maryland agencies, whatever they are, whether it's education or commerce or agriculture or whatever. Have not taken responsibility to bring economic development to the state of Maryland. Okay. So it's somebody else's job, right?
And it shouldn't be. Right.
So Maryland, as you indicated, is open for business, and that's been Governor Hogan's mantra.
That's his mantra. Yeah,
and so it's the lens that we look at everything that we do in the Office of the Secretary of State through. Yep. How is this going to impact and influence economic development in the state of Maryland?
And absolutely, that's the bottom line. It's great. I mean, listen, I love it. We have to take a short break.
Sure.
We'll come back and then we'll talk more about that and some of the other programs you're doing.
Thank you.
You're watching The Next Word. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
Hey, Hard, what's this?
That's my resignation.
You're resigning.
Why? You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit.
Oh, I forgot. I'll do better. Please don't quit on me.
Don't let your heart quit on you. Get your uncontrolled high blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Chris Warnke, and tonight we're having a conversation with Mr. Luis Borunda, who is the Deputy Secretary of State for the great state of Maryland.
All right.
I do. I love it. I always like to say great state because it is.
It is.
I grew up here, so I'm prejudiced. And you've done an amazing job so far as Deputy Secretary.
Thanks.
Really, it's fascinating. Yeah. It's a fun job, though.
It is. It's interesting because it's one of those things. The axiom is that if you find a job that you love, you'll never work a day in your life, right?
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm at right now in my stage.
Well, you're good at it.
And I love what I do. Yeah. I love working for the people of Maryland.
Right.
I love creating the bridges that between the state of Maryland and other states and other countries. Of course, the Secretary John Wobensmith is a fantastic mentor and a great asset to the state and to the governor. He's really focused on developing some very, very critical relationships with some world leaders in terms of not just geopolitics but economic development, and of course this is what we talked about earlier, is that's the lens that we look through when we look at these international relationships.
Terrific. So these world leaders, does he actually dialogue with a lot of these governors or whatever, leaders of these states, let's say in Estonia or Liberia, or you kind of cover the gamut.
Yeah. It's really been interesting because as Governor Hogan has traveled around the world, Secretary Wobensmith's been a part of making sure that Senator Hogan is on that country's leader's itinerary, so to speak.
Oh, wow.
And of course, that comes through the development of the relationships that we have. He met with one of China's top leaders. The Governor Hogan met with one of China's top leaders when they visited Asia, as well as the Japanese Prime Minister.
Oh, wow.
Prime Minister Abe. And Korea's top leaders as well. So it's a job that Secretary Wobensmith relishes and has been very, very effective at. And Governor Hogan's, been on that stage as well. So
that's terrific. So I was looking at the list because I was looking at the sister state relationships. You have 19 of them.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're all over the world.
Yeah. And if I could explain that just a little bit, can I unpackage it? Do you mind?
Yes. Please.
So everybody's heard of sister cities, right? And of course, various counties and cities have these relationships. Not very many states in the United States have a sister state relationship or sister states relationships with provinces or regions or states in foreign countries. So Maryland has these relationships with 19 states or provinces or regions in 16 foreign countries around the world.
Wow.
From China to Brazil, from Peru to Japan, and everywhere in between. We have a fantastic relationship with Estonia, for example.
I know. I was going to say I saw that, which.
And it's borne quite a bit of attention, specifically because Maryland's National Guard had helped Estonia with their armed forces, and specifically in the areas of cybersecurity. And while we initially had helped Estonia, Estonia has really become a world leader in this whole area of cybersecurity. So we're learning a lot from them now.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how these relationships grow and then they evolve into much more than you've ever thought.
Some of these relationships are primarily, some of them are primarily education-based relationships. Some, it just depends on the makeup of the committees that really foster these people-to-people relationships.
Just like sister cities. Depends on who, the city and.
And they ebb and flow.
But I looked at your list. It was interesting. The county, the state and the counties that you've chosen, and those relationships. But you all work at it. You must work at it.
We do.
Because we were talking before that. Was the proximity to the embassies here?
Sure.
Helps a lot because you can dialogue with with the ambassadors and their staffs.
Yeah.
And so you do a lot with that, I'm assuming.
We absolutely do. Real quick example, if it's okay.
Give me an example of what.
So there's a great medical a nonprofit in in Baltimore. They happen to be in Baltimore, and they focus on medical missions. And the head of the organization is from Ecuador. He's been here for many, many years.
Not Ecuador. Ecuador?
No, Ecuador.
No, but I mean the foundation is it Ecuador? No.
No. It's called Helping Hands.
Okay, because
And
yes, that's a great organization.
So
That's a wonderful organization.
They focus on ear
Yes, they do.
restoration
Yes.
as well as the cleft lip.
I know it very
lips.
well.
So they have been doing missions to Ecuador for several years
Many
now.
years, yeah.
And so I said, have you ever met with the Ecuadorian embassy before? And letting them know
Right.
that you're going to their country to support their communities, specifically their neediest communities
Right.
with these surgeries.
Right.
And he said, no, I really hadn't. And I said, I think you need to. And they still didn't understand the importance of it. So
Wow.
we took him to the embassy in Ecuador, and they gave the ambassador a presentation of what they do. And they were so impressed with this organization and so grateful that this organization goes to Ecuador. And they asked the organization, well, what can you do? Or what can we do? How can we help? And they weren't quite sure, so I asked them, when you get to Ecuador, who helps you offload all the medical equipment and you know the oxygen tanks and everything that you're taking over there? And he says, well, the doctors do. You know, you know, the doctors that are volunteering. And I said, and I turned to the ambassador. And I said, is that something that you could help with in terms of arranging some volunteers there when they get on the ground? To help them offload all of the stuff so they can get right to work. And the ambassador said, sure, that's no problem. And I said to them, who takes care of your security while you're in country? Because sometimes security is an issue in foreign countries, right? And they said, well, that's always a concern for the doctors. And I turned to the ambassador, I said, is security something that you could help with?
Oh, that's great.
Could you provide security for this medical team when they get there? Absolutely, there's no problem with that.
Oh,
we
that's
can
great.
take care of that. So it's these kinds of things that we can do.
Oh, absolutely. That's
just by asking.
Oh, I know. No. I saw what you've done.
But it has to do with the relationships, right? I didn't just walk off the street and ask for these things. We created that dynamic and that relationship. Coming into this office, and I'm embarrassed to say this, I couldn't have told you the difference between, the Minister of Economic and Development versus a Consul General.
Right.
Right. And but learning and understanding this whole dynamic is wonderful. And I've got to tell you, we have got a great division of international affairs at the Secretary of State's office. Right. And we have some really great professionals that work in that division that understand international.
It's smart, though. It's smart that the governor has put resources into that office. It's smart. I mean, it's for me, I've met your staff.
Yeah.
I've met some of your staff,
yeah.
And it's, he's, it's something that, he's obviously thought about and, and he understands what it means. And the end of the day, it's bringing, like you said, open for business.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
And that's why Maryland's thriving.
One of the exciting things that we're able to do is, I just talked about a nonprofit, but we're able to talk to businesses that are interested in doing business on an international basis. Now, we're not the Department of Commerce, but certainly we can open the doors, to these countries.
Oh my God!
And businesses can take advantage of that.
Right, absolutely. No, you've done amazing. So the international is sort of under your portfolio, under the Secretary of State's portfolio, right? Mm-hmm. I know you all, of course, do other things. You have a whole certification department, and you have a number of other. Obviously, it's just isn't just your international piece. Active office.
We're a very small office. We run. It's lean and mean, right?
Not really. Yeah.
But
good
relatively
people.
speaking, in terms of Maryland state government agencies,
right?
But besides the international piece, which is a big focus of what we do, our division of charities and legal services We handle all of the nonprofits in the state of Maryland. They have to register with
Oh,
our,
they do. They have to register.
Yeah,
oh, I didn't
we have
realize
to.
that.
They have to
Okay.
register with the Secretary of State's office if they're going to be
Okay.
soliciting
Right.
funds
and stuff.
as part of their mission.
That's interesting. Okay.
We also register all of the notaries in the state of Maryland.
Really? Okay.
So that's we're talking 18,000 plus.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
And
It's
so
huge.
one thing that I think that your audience might find of interest, specifically as it regards to charities, the nonprofit industry in the state of Maryland is about the fourth largest employer in the entire state.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a really
That
important
doesn't surprise me. I guess.
industry, for lack of a better word,
Right.
or economic driver,
Right.
if you will, for the state of Maryland. So it's really important.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was one of the fourth.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
it's really
Well,
big.
this has been fascinating. At least we don't have enough time. Let's run out of time.
You have to have me
come
back.
I have to have you back in the next chapter
Right.
of your leadership life. Well, you've done a great job. It's
Thank
been an honor
you,
to have you.
Chris,
and
it's been
you
wonderful.
got to come back and we got to get the governor here too.
Okay.
Tell him he's doing a good job.
I will.
It's been great. Yeah. So thank you.
Great.
You've been watching The Next Word. You can see us 6 days a week, and we look forward to our next time together. Have a great evening. Good night.